What's up, guys, and welcome back to Mild vs. the Movies, week number 8. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into this week's episode. Thanks to anyone that voted in the House Shark poll I put on the last episode. I forgot to mention it in the video because I forgot I could do cards, so I'm going to put one in this video too that will appear now, hopefully. So if you want to see a full video on House Shark, vote on that. I'll kind of combine it with the other poll and get my result from that, I guess. I think that's all I really wanted to cover. So we're just going to jump in with our first movie. So on Sunday the 17th, I watched Carlito's Way on DVD, directed by Brian De Palma from 1993. For a plot summary, Carlito Brigante is an ex-con who's attempting to go straight, but the life of crime won't let him go. For our pros, firstly, Sean Penn's performance. He plays Carlito's lawyer in this. I didn't realise it was Sean Penn for a lot of the movie. That's how good he is, isn't it? He's got this terrible hairdo that he inflicted upon himself, and it pays off. He's very physically distinct in it, and just the character he's playing is quite fun, so he does a good job in it. For my second pro, I think this film's very nicely filmed. Just like the cinematography in it's really nice. The shots are well composed, I think. It just looks well. It looks really good, I would say. Thirdly, I think the film's got a pretty good score and a pretty good soundtrack. So the soundtrack tends to be a lot of 70s disco music, because that's the time period versus set. So that's obviously I quite like that type of music. So I enjoyed the soundtrack for that. But the actual orchestral kind of score for the other parts of the movie, that's really good. I really like that as well. And fourthly, I think Al Pacino is quite good in this. I'm quite a fan of Pacino. Well, I was. Then he was in is it Jack and Jill, where he's Dunkachino in one of the Adam Sandler ones, I can't remember. But he's pretty good in this. Most of the time, his accent's a bit ropey at times though. It kind of slips a bit, and it's a bit... Ugh. We'll get into... There's another thing I don't like about his performance, but we'll get into that shortly. On to the cons now. Firstly, I'm not super keen on the narration in this movie. So Carlito kind of monologues to us, but, you know, as in his thoughts rather than him actually speaking to the camera. And they're just kind of rubbish. The dialogue in them is really bad. It doesn't feel natural speech. It just doesn't work. I get what they were going for, but it really, really doesn't fit with the movie that they're making. It's really... It's a complete, misfire. They really annoy me. To be honest, they kind of really put me off the movie as a whole. Secondly, I mentioned this quite a few times with some movies, I think, but I think this is a bit too long. This is 2.5 hours long, and by the end of it I was like, come on. It doesn't really need to be that 2.5 hours long. And thirdly, there's a romance subplot in this, and I don't think it's particularly well done at all. It's not very well done, and it just didn't work for me. For my overall rating, I gave Carlito's Way a 7 out of 10. Do I think you should see it? Maybe. If you like crime films, it might be worth a watch. But I wouldn't recommend it over... The biggest problem I think with it is it's easy to compare it to Scarface, because that's Brian De Palma and it's Al Pacino, and it's about a criminal who's from a Hispanic place. Carlito's Puerto Rican, Tony Montana is from Cuba, and it just kind of feels like this is kind of the same movie done differently. But the problem is Scarface is a lot better. This isn't anything kind of special. Maybe worth a watch. If you like me and you like just watching a lot of movies and you like crime movies, it's worth a watch. But maybe not someone worth going out your way to see. For my next film, on Monday the 18th, I watched Super 8, directed by J.J. Abrams in 2011. I watched this on DVD. For my plot summary, a group of kids are shooting a Super 8 movie and witness a train crash. Soon the whole town goes haywire as a shadowy, unexplained events happen. Firstly, for my pros, I think the child actors in this are pretty good. I'm always kind of cautious whenever I see child actors. I'm like, oh no, this movie like relies on children. This might be terrible. But they're all pretty good. Secondly, I thought the idea of the story is quite interesting. It kind of falls into that kind of like Stranger Things kind of category where there's kind of like a mystery going on in a small town. I'm like, those kind of movies can be quite fun. Thirdly, I really like the end credits of this movie. And that's probably a strange thing to say, but we get to see the little Super 8 movie the kids were working on. You get to see it and over the end credits. And I really enjoyed that. It's fun. It's kind of charming, and I quite like that. On to the cons now. Firstly, I know it's a J.J. Abrams film, so this probably goes without saying for a lot of people, but there's a bit too much lens flare in this. To me, I was never particularly aware of it in Star Trek when I watched that. You know, the one he directed, obviously. That's the only one called Star Trek, because the other one's Star Trek, the motion picture. But I didn't find it too bad in Star Trek. I think I didn't mind it too much because it was a sci-fi setting. This is just kind of set in the real world, and the lens flare, I'm like, really? That light be making that much light on a camera? I didn't like it, and I found it distracting. Maybe it's because all the stuff after Star Trek folk were joking about it, and now I've noticed it more. Secondly, I think some of the CGI is a bit meh. Like, I don't want to go into it because it's kind of spoilers for the movie, and I don't do spoilers, but some of the CGI in this I wasn't that impressed with. Even for it being 2011, I don't think it would have looked amazing in 2011. Thirdly, it didn't really feel that memorable to me. I really struggled to write for pros or cons for this. It just kind of is almost like I had it on in the background, you know? But I was watching it, if that makes sense. I've kind of got a fourth con, and it kind of ties into this one, so I'll just probably mention it now. It feels like a bit generic. I know it's like kind of inspired by E.T. and Spielberg movies like that, but the problem is, I'm like, I've kind of seen Spielberg movies like that, you know? It didn't click for me. I wasn't that impressed by it. For my overall rating, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Do I think you should see it? Maybe? Probably. I feel like I say maybe for every movie. You should probably see it. I think it's perfectly alright. It's just nothing special, you know? I never thought so anyway. A lot of people seem to really like it, so I could be wrong. Well, it's not wrong, it's a subjective opinion, that's how they work. But, you could go and watch it and perfectly enjoy it. And I could probably understand people enjoying it. It just didn't click for me. Speaking of films I struggle to think of things to write about, we move on to Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, which I watched on Netflix, directed by Michael Cimino, I think that's pronounced, or Camino, maybe, from 1974. For our plot summary, a former criminal runs into a young drifter. The two form a unlikely fast friendship as we follow their adventures as they drive around and avoid two men who are pursuing them. Firstly, the pros. I think this movie has a pretty solid cast. Firstly, you've got Clint Eastwood as our lead. He's the Thunderbolt of Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. He's pretty good in this. And we've got Lightfoot, which is Jeff Bridges, not Kurt Russell. I'm still embarrassed about that. It makes me cringe whenever I think about it. I'm like, I feel like deleting that video. It's so embarrassing. But it's got Jeff Bridges. I love Jeff Bridges. He's great. He's really good in this. He's actually even nominated for the Best Supporting Actor Oscar, which I was like, oh, good for you, mate. I like Jeff Bridges. But yeah, he's very fun. He's Lightfoot. He's like a young drifter kind of guy. He's fun. We've got George Kennedy, who's probably most well known for being in Police Squad. Well, Naked Gun and Police... Wait, was he in Police Squad? No, he was just in Naked Gun. He's the head of the Police Squad in Naked Gun. That's the Police Squad comes from, but I really love him in Naked Gun, and he's playing a sort of comedic role in this as well, so he's quite fun in that. We've also got a lot of regular Clint Eastwood collaborators, the kind that were in this sort of more comedy action movies. So you've got like Jeffrey Lewis is in it, for example, and he's his brother in Every Which Way But Loose, the guy with a hat where he keeps turning his hat round either way. He's in this in quite a prominent role, so that's good. Just a lot. It's a pretty good cast in this movie. For my second pro, I think this is pretty funny at points. It's a comedy. It's in that kind of. It's in that same kind of category as Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, but it's probably less of a comedy, if that makes sense. So it's more of a comedy drama than a straight comedy. There's not like any gangs of bikers going around going, follow Benno. I do quite like the two Any Which Way and Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can. They're like very good popcorn movies. I love them. This is quite fun though. The only downside about it is I don't have much to talk about it. There's not much like cinematography going on. The soundtracks, like, all the stuff is alright, but there's nothing like terribly bad about it or terribly good. It's like a alright movie, apart from, the things I mentioned. Onto my cons, I'm not super keen on the opening, and I think this is why I'm not so keen on it. The opening section is quite good. The actual opening scene I really like. The opening scene's quite a good opening for a movie. And then we get to like a motel sequence. I don't really want to talk about it, but I don't like it at all. It doesn't sit right with me. I know it's probably because it's a film from the 70s and attitudes are a bit different now, but it kind of makes me go, oh, no, don't like this. It just makes me kind of uncomfortable, and I didn't really like it. And I think that's probably why I didn't enjoy this movie as much as I thought I was going to. If that sequence wasn't in it, if you cut that little sequence out, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. For my overall rating, I gave this a 7 out of 10. Do I think you should see it? If you like Clint's other films, it's worth a watch. If you enjoyed the Every Which Way You Can and Any Which Way But Loose, there we go, that's the right ways. I always struggle to remember what way the words go around in those two movies. If you enjoyed the two of them, this might be worth a watch. It's an X-rated film, so it's a bit more, a bit more risque, particularly that motel bit. Look, I really didn't like that. But the rest of it's quite good. It's kind of weird to describe. Once it kind of gets into the second and third act, it really picks up for me. Also, I never mentioned this. If you're into random famous actors in small roles, which I am, when you watch like a old film and there's like Patrick Stewart's like the bus driver or something like that. In this movie, Gary Busey's in it. Just randomly. And it's weird because I'm like, Gary Busey's just like a meme actor to me. He's just like in like The Ginger Dead Man. And that movie where he was a dog. It's a real movie. I can't remember what it's called, but Gary Busey dies and becomes a dog. It's not very good. But back to Thunderbolt and Lightfoo. It's alright. We're now half speeding through these movies this week, so we'll keep going on to Burn After Reading, which I watched on Netflix, directed by Joel and Ethan Coen from 2008. For our plot summary, a convoluted series of events unfold as a group of individuals' lives intertwine with each other against a backdrop of crime and espionage. I'm keeping it vague. I like my plot summaries being vague. Oh, if you guys think they're too vague, tell me. I don't like... I basically watch a movie, not off its title, but like off a sentence. I'll be like, or like even off the genres, or people who are involved in them. Like, I watched this movie because it was made by the Coen brothers, because they're very good at making movies. Firstly, our pros. I think this film has quite a few funny, humorous moments in it. It's got kind of a dark comedic tone, kind of like Fargo and the other Coen brothers movies in that kind of light. It's not as funny as The Big Lebowski or anything like that. I think it's more of a comedy than Fargo. I think Fargo is a bit more serious, maybe. I'm trying to remember, because Fargo now combines with the Fargo TV show in my head. But yeah, it's kind of humorous, this movie. It's got a few bits that made me chuckle and a few bits that made me laugh. It's not the film that made me laugh the most this week. We'll get on to that. You can probably guess what it is if you know anything about the remaining movies. I'll give you a clue. It's not Downfall. For my second pro, I really enjoyed Frances McDormand's character in this. This movie as a whole has a pretty decent cast. I'll kind of mention one of the other people I really like in it. I don't mention her specifically, but Tilda Swinton's in this, and I love Tilda Swinton. She's really great. But Frances McDormand, God, she's great. I love her. I loved her in Fargo. And when I watched this, I was kind of not that into it, and then Frances McDormand's character isn't in it until like about 10 minutes in, and then the second she shows up and starts talking, I'm like, yes, here is the person to make this movie better. And I was right, because she made the movie better, and I really liked her. Her character is quite funny. It's probably the most interesting of them all, because a lot of them just kind of don't have like super interesting motivations. She actually has like a kind of more interesting character going on. I liked her a lot. Thirdly, I quite like the intermingling of the plots. So everything kind of starts off disconnected, and it's kind of fun to see how everything eventually all ties in with each other. I like that. It kind of reminds me of like those old kind of farces where it's, you know, a bunch of events that then get more and more out of control and things get more and more messed up. And fourthly, I mentioned I was going to talk about another cast member I really liked. My boy, John Malkovich. He's back. I think he must be the actor who's appeared in most of the movies I've watched so far. How many has he been in? He was in Bird Box, he was in Being John Malkovich, he was in Burn After Reading, and he's been in, I'm going to say Night Creep. It's not even the right one. It's Velvet Buzzsaw he was in, not Nightcrawler. He's been in 4. Have I missed one? I don't think I've missed one. So he's been in 4 of the... How many will that be now? This today is the... That was 23rd, so 23 plus 31. I've watched 54 movies already. God almighty. Wow. I didn't realise it was so far through. Wow. That seems really far, doesn't it? When you say it like that. But yeah, John Malkovich. He's good, and I like him. And he's quite fun in this. He plays an alcoholic. So far in 2 of the movies I've watched. In fact, wait. No, he's an alcoholic in Bird Box, isn't he? I think he's an alcoholic. I don't think it ever explicitly says, but I think his character is meant to be an implied alcoholic in Bird Box. He's an alcoholic in Velvet Buzzsaw. He's an alcoholic in Burn After Reading. He's... What was he in Being John Malkovich? He was John Malkovich. I don't think John Malkovich is actually an alcoholic, because he's an actor and he pretends to be one. So, you know, he's got a type apparently. But yeah, I really like him a lot, so I was quite happy to see him in this. And he's quite good in this. On to the cons now. Firstly, I don't think the film's super funny. It is a comedy, but it's more kind of not like that, but it's more like a kind of wry smile comedy. I didn't laugh out loud too often in this. I laughed a few times, but most of the time I was just kind of, yeah. Like, it's amusing, I would say, but it's not. In fact, it's definitely not the kind of comedy that everyone will like either, because it's quite... Some of the jokes are kind of dark, and it's very sort of quirky and a bit weird. I liked it, but I could get people not liking it. Tying into that for my second con, it just kind of feels lacking. I don't know what exactly, just some sort of intangible thing. I was thinking maybe the characters, because I kind of mentioned this. Frances McDormand's character is probably the most fun one, but a lot of them are just kind of this one's dumb, and this one is horny, and this one is a drunk man, and this one is blank, this one is stern, you know, which I don't know, it didn't really work for me, as well as like the other Coen brother films have. And thirdly, this is tying into this, and I think this is maybe my biggest problem with it. With a runtime of an hour and a half, I don't think you can really do an ensemble piece and expect all the characters to really shine. Like, I think this movie, I rarely say this, I think this movie could have been longer and it would have been better. Because with an hour 30, you've got basically 4 main characters, and none of them feel super kind of developed that much. And I would have liked to know a bit more about them. You know? To know why they were doing the things they're doing. For my overall rating, I gave this a 7 out of 10. Do I think you should watch it? Only if you really fancy it. It's a skippable movie if you're not interested. On Thursday the 21st of February, I watched Downfall on Netflix, directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel from 2004. I probably butchered that surname and I apologise in advance. Well, in advance after the fact, rather. For a plot summary, set in the final days of World War II, we follow Hitler's final days as Berlin falls. We also follow some of the other residents of the city as they try and cope with the terrible situation they've got themselves in. So for my pros, firstly, part of the reason I watched this is Bruno Ganz, who is the actor who played Hitler in this, tragically passed away quite recently. So I thought I'd finally check this out, and I'm really glad I did, because my first pro is his performance. I know everyone's like, oh, it's internet memes with the bit where him yelling about Steiner not doing his job, but he does give a very good performance. And even though this is gonna sound crazy, because a lot of time he's shouting, like you're picturing that clip of him yelling. It's actually quite understated a lot of the time, and that's what makes those outbursts, because there's a few of those outbursts throughout the movie. That's what makes them even better, because a lot of the other time he's just like, oh yeah, quite like quiet and not that aggressive for that. It's a very good performance. Additionally, I've got some little notes about things I really enjoyed about his performance in it. So he does this hand tremor thing that Hitler apparently had. He had like really bad hand tremors because they reckon he either had syphilis/Parkinson's, and he does that really well throughout the whole movie. Like, it's a really difficult thing to do physically, constantly, and also concentrate on other stuff at the same time. And he does a really, really good job of it. He also does, tying in with that, he apparently also had like a weird walk where he couldn't walk properly, which is part of the reason they reckon it was Parkinson's. He does that really well. He like really slowly kind of shuffles about. Because right at the start of the movie, you see him in like, I think is it 41? I think at the beginning of the film, when he's hiring our sort of main character. There's not really a main character, really. You could argue Bruno Ganz as Hitler is the main character, but there's one of his secretaries. It's based on her book. This movie was based on 2 books, but one of the books it's based on was written by one of his secretaries who survived, and we see her getting hired in like 1941, and he's playing him completely different physically, and then he goes to then being, a guy who's clearly quite unwell, and it's quite a good performance. Tying in with that, he kind of does a really good job of him portraying him kind of slowly sort of coming to terms with what's about to happen, and like realizing, spoilers, Hitler doesn't live in the movie. I don't mean to break it to you guys. Spoilers for real world World War II. But he does a really good job of conveying him kind of like slowly resigning himself and like kind of going, I was going to say going mad, but it's Hitler, so going madder, I suppose, would be the operative phrase, but he does a really good job of portraying all that. For my second pro, because I think this film is kind of just maybe viewed as Bruno Ganz as Hitler, and I kind of want to, talk about the other good things in it, because there are a lot of really good things about this movie. And one of them is how it's filmed. So we have, for example, we often avoid violence completely, so parts that I feel like another movie would kind of show you and be a bit like, oh, look at that, ooh, gross. Here's a guy getting shot in the face. The camera like looks away like it's a person looking away. And I quite like that. I quite like the fact we don't see a lot of the things that would be shown in other films. And I like that. I think that makes it a better movie. Tying in with that, I really like the kind of claustrophobic filming we see in the bunker. So when we're in the bunker, everything is like super tight shots, and in particular scenes, so like he has like this little meeting room in it that's about the size of a double bed. It's a tiny little room, and they're all like crammed in it, and we'll be filming it from the corner, and there'll be people standing in front of the camera like you're actually in there with them, and like it makes you feel so tense and so trapped. It's very good at conveying a message without saying it to you, if that makes sense. Because that's what good cinematography does, it helps with the themes of the movie without anything having to be said. It's a really good movie. I really like this movie. For my next pro, I think the rest of the cast are really solid too. Like I said, it's not just Bruno Ganz' show. Like, the lady that plays his secretary, is it Traudel? I believe is her name. She's good. You've got, I mentioned we follow other characters, so we've got young boy who's like a member of the Hitler Youth, who's like helping defend Berlin. from the people, well, from the Russians. We follow him for quite a bit. He's really well performed. And we have a colonel guy who's like, I think he's like some sort of medical doctor. Medical doctor, but I suppose that's, I was going to say that's what all doctors are, but they're not. But I think he's a medical doctor, I'm not quite sure. He's pretty good as well. He looks a bit like Mark Strong, and it kind of put me off a wee bit. Because I was a bit like, Mark Strong doesn't speak German and isn't in this movie, but every time I was like, oh, it's Mark Strong. He's in this movie. But yeah, I think the whole cast is really good. I also thought the actor playing Goebbels was very good. He is a surprisingly good likeness, actually. I think a lot of them are in this. A lot more than... I don't know what many of them look like outside of the main ones when it comes to people from World War II. But a lot of them, of the main ones, really do look like the people that they're playing, which surprised me. Because it must be quite hard to get someone who looks the part, or can be made to look the part, and at the same time also act. I've not mentioned her as a specific pro as well, but the actress who plays Eva Braun, for example, is really good. But everyone in this movie is really good. I don't think I can say that quite enough. Everyone feels like the best person they could have got to play the role played the role. Really well made, this movie. Tying into how well made this movie is, I thought the costume design and production is really good in it. I didn't really initially realise this, and I was thinking about it while I was writing, I was just recording this actually, and I just realised, and it was really good. Like well, I know it's going to sound silly because it's set in a bunker for most of the film and like a ruined city, but it doesn't feel like a set of a ruined city. It feels quite real, particularly some of the bits in like the crowded hospitals and the desolate city and like the rubble, and it feels quite real. Like instead of it being a set, like they actually somehow filmed in a real city where a war was going on. Onto my cons now. I do have a couple. Firstly, it is quite long. It clocks in at 2 hours and 36 minutes, so it's quite long. It's also kind of strange where that length is. I was kind of surprised at how quickly... I thought the movie was about kind of the end of Hitler's life. I didn't realise it was just kind of more... It's more about the end of World War II. So Hitler dies, and there's a bunch more happens after that. A lot of stuff happened after that. But yeah, it's maybe... I don't think it's too long. I just think it is long. Just, it's more kind of like a warning for people. If you don't like films that are quite long, this movie is quite long. And secondly, this guy goes without saying, given the subject matter, but this film can be quite bleak. And in particular, it has a couple of... I say a couple, it has quite a few genuinely very upsetting scenes. There are two in particular that they really upset me. You can probably, if you've seen this, you can probably work out what they are. I don't want to say what they are, but there's two in particular that really upset me, but there's a lot in this that's it's grim, As it should be. You shouldn't treat something like that as a lighthearted, laugh, but I mean, it's just a warning for people. If you're thinking about watching this and you're a bit, sensitive to stuff like that, you should maybe give it a miss, because it's quite heavy going. For my overall rating, I gave this a 9 out of 10. Do I think you should watch it? Yes. If you don't mind subtitled films, because it is subtitled, I can understand people don't like a lot of people don't like films with subtitles. I can understand that. I don't mind it so much. And if you don't mind it being quite bleak, because, it's not going to be a happy story. It's a very bleak story. But it's very good. It's very well acted. Not just by Bruno Ganz, by the whole group of them. It's very much worth a watch. I don't usually like films about World War II. And I really enjoyed this. Enjoyed's maybe not the right word exactly, but I really appreciated it. I was like, this is a good movie. Sound the alarm, ladies and gentlemen. It is the moment I've been waiting for since it got announced. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The movie event of the summer, but it's in February. It is Liam Neeson's Snowplow movie 2019. It's here. I'm excited, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So, On the 22nd of February, I went to go and see Liam Neeson's Snowplow movie 2019, aka Cold Pursuit, if you're a coward, in the cinema, directed by Hans-Peter Moland from 2019. For our plot summary, after his son is killed, a small-town snowplow operator seeks revenge on the criminals that did it. On to the pros. Firstly, this film has some fun, dark humour elements in it. It's got some jokes that are pretty dark, but they're kind of funny. It's got some like elements where you're like, it's got very dark humour in it, and it's quite good. Dark humour, it's quite funny. I used to have lots of. It has quite a few awkward bits as well that I quite like, where it's something goes on far too long. There's one of them in the trailer, and I really like jokes like that. So like say I'm trying to think of like an example from a different movie that's not really a spoiler. Oh right, kind of like that's less so because the character was annoyed by it in the movie. Just where something just goes on too long for a bit too long, if that makes sense. It's definitely, I'm trying to think of an example that isn't this movie. There's one, I'll tell you the one in the trailer on this. So there's like a bit where it's tying into the dark humor. There's a bit where his dead son is getting like slowly lifted up on this thing, and the guy's like, like with a squeaky thing, slowly doing it, and it goes on for like a minute and a half. It's so long and it's so awkward, and everyone's just standing there. I'm like, that's funny. There's probably a lot of people who are like horrified at that, like, oh, but that's funny, you know, a long awkward, you know, this like awkward thing just going on and on and on just kind of makes me laugh. I don't know. For my second pro, I thought the lead criminal, played by Tom Bateman, was very fun. He's kind of over the top, but that kind of just makes the movie better. There's a lot of the humor elements in it come from him, just how ridiculous he is. He's a Viking. They all have nicknames in this, and it gets kind of confusing. There's even a joke about it in the movie. I had to look him up to remember what one he was, because the cast isn't in his cast is in like a bit of a strange order for some reason on IMDb, so it took me a while to find him, and then I found him and I was like, there he is. But yeah, he's a very fun performance in this. A lot of my enjoyment of the movie came from him. Thirdly, I quite like the presentation of this movie. We'll get into the presentation later of Liam Neeson's Snowplow movie 2019, but there's a couple of things I want to talk about. I quite liked how it's filmed at times. We've got like I'll get into this later, but the way it's filmed is quite good. But we'll get into, I have a bit of a problem with it at the same time. And there's one thing I like about the presentation. I mentioned every character has a nickname in it, because they're all like underworld types. So when a character gets killed, we get this kind of death title card thing. So like the screen will be black, and then we'll get like on white text on it. I'm trying to think of like an example name. Well, there's one. I can't mind his real name, but there's a character called Speedo in it. So it'll be like Speedo John Smith. So like after every character gets killed, we get a card for their name. And that's like a fun little touch. I quite like that. And fourthly, I think the soundtrack is alright. It's kind of that kind of classic rock movie soundtrack, if that makes sense. It's probably not anything original, it's probably not anything special, but it's alright. On to the cons now. I mentioned the presentation, and this is where it's going to come back up. Firstly, this film is a complete rip-off of Fargo. Now, I know that this film is based on a Norwegian movie called In Order of Disappearance, in Norwegian, but it feels more like a rip-off of Fargo, and I'll kind of go into that with just some plot elements. These are like shared kind of things. Not just saying like the movie, I'm talking about the television series of Fargo as well. So we've got a heavy focus on Native Americans like we have in the series 2 of Fargo with the family whose name I can't remember, and Kirsten Dunst. We have a non-criminal at the centre of a gang war, which we have in that same series. We have another thing, which is a later of the film spoiler, which is like a particular fate of a character, we'll say. That is then replicated in this. You could argue there's a bit that's then replicating probably the most famous scene from Fargo in a different way. We've even got a small town cop who's a woman who wants to go out and solve the big crime that's going on, and we have like her male sort of supervisor who isn't that interested in it. And you're like, this is Fargo. This is the motion picture Fargo directed by the Coen brothers. You've even got, the kind of black comedy. You've got it's not quite got the weird dialogue, which I was kind of expecting from like something like that. But yeah, it feels like a complete copy of Fargo. And it's I don't know if the original's like this. I kind of want to watch the original now, because I found out the original has Stellan Skarsgård in it. And I really like him. So I kind of want to watch it now to see if it has the same stuff going on. But yeah, it feels like Liam Neeson Snowplow movie 2019 could have been Series 4 of Fargo. I mean, it's set in Arizona, and that, if you moved it to that, because there's even the element of the out-of-city gangsters, because the gangsters aren't based in the town that the movie's set. They are based in out-of-town Denver, which... Fargo isn't set in Fargo. The gangsters are from the out-of-town city of Fargo. It feels like such a rip-off, the whole movie. Secondly, it kind of feels like a bit of a tonal mess, this movie. This feels like it was edited to be less black comedy, because I noticed there's a joke in the trailer. Now, when I went to go and see... What movie did I go and see that had a trailer for Cold Pursuit? I went to go and see two, one after the other. I went to see Glass and Can You Ever Forgive Me? Now, Glass had a longer trailer for this movie. And basically one point in this trailer got a laugh. It's a bit where his dead son gets cranked up on the thing, and then the mortician standing next to Liam Neeson goes, "He's dead." And that's like the punchline. People laughed at that. That line's cut out of the movie. The one line that people laughed at in the cinema, they cut out the movie. I was like, why would you do that? That was like the fun part of this movie. It does feel like it's been quickly we can't have it be a comedy. We need it to be more serious. We can't have a black comedy, because people wouldn't want to see that, I guess. I don't know why it's been edited. It definitely smells of editing. You can just kind of tell sometimes, and it feels like it's been re-edited. I wonder if we'll ever... I don't think it'll be popular enough to ever have a director's cut, but I would kind of like to see one, just to see how different it would be. Thirdly, tying in with this, I mentioned I liked how it's filmed. It's filmed like a Coen's brother film. I know that's the real thing that pushes it into the Fargo ripoff category to me. It feels like a Coen Brothers fan film. Like the title cards, that's kind of Coen Brothers. The music that I said I like, even that's kind of like a Coen Brothers thing, because you have like that in the Fargo TV series. You'll get, that kind of classic rock to soundtrack kind of things. Usually at like the end of episodes or that. So yeah, just the whole thing, it feels like a film student's been given the assignment, like, okay, Billy, your assignment this month is to make the Liam Neeson Snowplow movie 2019 in the style of the Coen brothers. And that's what Billy from film school made, and then he made Cold Pursuit, or aka Liam Neeson Snowplow movie 2019. For my next con, not keen on the abrupt ending to this movie. This movie just ends. That's fine. It doesn't end, it stops. That's probably the best description of it. It just stops. The movie just stops happening. And I didn't like that. That can work in movies quite well, but this one was bad. I feel like it's not probably as bad as a lot of people say The Sopranos is, that like cut to black in the middle of a sentence. It's not quite that bad, but it's not good. It's far too abrupt. It's just, movie's over. You're like, things are resolved, but not fully. And it's like, what, are you leaving the door open for Liam Neeson Snowplow movie 2022? That's not going to happen. And for my last con, this is going to sound probably a bit strange. This movie, to me, feels most like a missed opportunity. I thought this movie was either going to be terrible or it was going to be great. And instead it's mediocre, which I think is probably the worst thing it could be. But in particular, when I saw Liam Neeson Snowplow Revenge movie was getting made, I was like, okay, there are two things that will happen in this snowplow action movie, okay? He'll either drive a snowplow into a person, like a guy's going to be standing there and he's going to snowplow him, or he's going to drive the snowplow into a building, okay? The fact that he's a snowplow man very rarely comes into the movie until the end. And like bits of it where you're like, that would also work with a car. I'm like, why would you make him a snowplowman? Is it more in the original? Because if it's more in the original, why didn't you take those bits? Because that would have been more fun. I kind of want to watch the original now, just to see if I like it more, because I feel like I probably will. It was just a disappointment. That's how I would describe this movie, a disappointment. So for an overall rating, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Do I think you should watch it? That's probably my truest answer, just I don't think the meme of the Liam Neeson Snowplow movie 2019 justifies paying for a ticket to go and see Liam Neeson Snowplow movie 2019. I went to see it because I've got the Odeon Limitless pass, so basically I can go to the cinema as much as I want. And that's the only reason I went. If you like things like Fargo, you might like it. Because, like I said, it kind of feels like a Fargo ripoff. I wish, like I said, I feel like if there was a director's cut of this movie made, I would probably like it more. If it had more of the dark comedy and if it went for it a bit more. Because it kind of like ramps up as the movie goes on and it feels a bit kind of strange. It's like the studio re-edited it but only got like 30 minutes in and we're like, oh no, we have to put it to print now. Send it. As is. So like some of the jokes sneak in. But yeah, I don't know whether I should recommend seeing it or not. Maybe if you have an unlimited cinema pass, then yeah, go and see it. But then go and see every movie. If you have one of those. Yeah, that's my review. Just, there you go. Lastly this week. Oh man, what a film. For my bad movie this week, I watched Fatal Deviation. Fatal Deviation. Fatal Deviation. It's just called Fatal Deviation. There's a bit where a guy says it like 8 times. I watched it on YouTube because it's basically impossible to acquire a DVD copy of this movie. And I would kill to get a proper DVD of this movie. It is directed by Shay Casserly and Simon Linsheet. I think that's pronounced. It's probably an Irish Gaelic name and I butchered it and I apologise. It's from 1998 and it is Ireland's first and presumably only martial arts movie. Oh man, I love this. So for a plot summary, a young man returns to his hometown only to be involved with a drug lord who controls the town for his criminal enterprises. Boo hiss. I'm going to read you the IMDb description, which is a classic good versus evil action flick mixed with kicks, guns, motorcycles, and a hot babe. I couldn't even get to the end without laughing. Oh man. Also, I just wanted to read you the first cast list in this. So the cast, for example, features James P. Bennett as Jimmy Bennett, credited as James Bennett. I love this movie. So, for a bit of backstory on this movie, I know this from OSW Review, did a video on it, and that's really good. If you want an in-depth review of Fatal Deviation, watch that, it's really fun. But basically, this lad, James Bennett, heard a bunch of Chinese martial art movie producers were interested in him because he's like a martial artist. So he made this movie. It's basically a show reel for how good I am at martial arts and I can be in your action movie. And also Mikey out of Boyzone. Mikey from the rock group Boyzone, as it's credited in the title. The rock group Boyzone. You know, when I think of hardcore rock, I think Ronan Keating. But he's in it as well. For some reason, I think he wanted to try and get into acting after Boyzone. He's actually not bad. We'll get into it. But yeah, James Bennett made this little movie as his little like show reel of this is why you can cast me in your action movies. So now you know the incredible backstory. Let's go into our pros. I actually have quite a few. Firstly, this is a hilarious bad movie. I think this is the most I've laughed at one of the bad movies so far. I love this. It was so funny. Even talking about it, you can probably hear it in my voice. Even thinking about it now is making me laugh. Oh, it really is. It's a very special movie. Tying in with this, I'm just going to preface this. I mentioned this with Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's true for this movie. Every con I'm going to list for this movie is like a kind of, objectively, these are bad things about the movie, but realistically, every single one of them is why the movie is great as a bad movie. This is a very strong contender for the best worst movie. To the point, I think it has a 4.8 on IMDb out of 300 reviews, and I think that's because people who rated it sincerely as a movie gave it a 1, and people who rated it as a brilliant, way to spend an hour and a half gave it 10. It really is a very, very special movie. Sorry, just so how I wrote this next pro down, I've written Jimmy Bennett's Fabulous Wardrobe. So this is going to sound like a strange thing to mention, but I just had to bring it up. In every scene, Jimmy Bennett is wearing a different outfit. And that happens in every scene, and it's really weird. It's like the same day, he wears like 20 different clothes. It's like, Jimmy, why do you have so many clothes? Only at the end does he keep the same outfit on. It's so, it's like, I don't know if it's concerning or what it is. I'm just like, why do you have so many clothes, Jimmy? Why? And at the same time, Mikey from the rock group Boyzone, he only wears one outfit in the whole movie. No wonder his girlfriend wants to run off with Jimmy Bennett. He's got tank top money. He also, half the time he's wearing shirts, and he's wearing his jeans, right? And they go up past his belly button, and he's got the shirt tucked into it, but just the end of the shirt. So he's got this big baggy shirt and these super tight jeans on, and it's a really strange combo. It's kind of lovable though. This movie's very charming. Thirdly, as a pro, the fight choreography in this and all the martial arts stuff that Jimmy does is actually pretty good. To give him his due, for just some guy, I was quite impressed. I was like, look, you could tell he's not bluffing. He genuinely could have done martial arts stuff in movies, or fight choreography, or maybe is that kind of, here's the cool henchman that knows martial arts in the action film. There's always the featured henchman for some reason. He could have been a really good featured martial arts guy henchman. I actually kind of like Jimmy Bennett after this, I won't lie. I kind of hope he people hire him to do stuff. I just looked up Jimmy Bennett. He's apparently in the film Jersey Boys, which is not what I was expecting to read, but he's in a lot of action films by the looks of it, and small roles doing cool action things, and that's pretty cool, and I'm quite happy for him. Good for you, James. And fourthly, as a pro, I have to mention the amazing outtakes at the end of the movie. So, at the end of the movie, before the credits, we then get about 5 or 6 minutes of glorious outtakes. They are brilliant. We have the guy who's the main villain in the movie getting coached into acting, and he can't act, and it's really funny. He can't deliver. He has this line in it that I kind of want to use as a reaction clip. Someday I'll go and get that clip where it's his henchman comes in and he turns around and he sees them all beaten up and he just goes, "What the fuck is this?" And it's so great. And then after that, the guy says, Jimmy Bennett did it. And he goes, "Bennett!" And he has to get coached how to say Bennett. And it's a minute long. And at the end of it, after he gets it, the director just leaves the room. It's all off. And I was like, all the outtakes look like this film was a bunch of fun to make. Everyone looked like they're having a fun time. Just it looks like a bunch of mates were Jimmy wants to make a movie. We're going to help Jimmy make this movie. And it's a fun time. And there's a couple of outtakes I'm not keen on where the guy nearly gets really hurt. And I'm like, oh no. There's one where a guy falls over the wall. And in the movie, I was like, you got hurt there, didn't you? Because the noise he makes is terrifying. It's like a, oh, like that, and you're like, oh no. And then the outtake, we see there's more to that take, and it's then them all running over to the guy and be like, are you alright? And he just goes like, I'm not doing that again. And you're like, oh no. But yeah, it looked like they had a lot of fun making this, and that makes me happy, you know? It looks like a bunch of mates having fun making a fun action kung fu movie, and God, it comes through in the movie. It's a fun movie to watch. On to the cons. Now remember, all of these bad things I'm saying are things that made me like the movie even more. Just like outside of my own opinion of this, it's like objectively these are bad things about the movie, but they're also what make the movie so good. Okay, just remember that. Firstly, it's got very low quality audio, very low quality picture. I'm having to watch this on YouTube, so it's someone's VHS rip, I think. It's not super high quality, which is a real shame. I would love there to be DVDs of this. I would happily buy a DVD of this. Honestly, whoever owns the rights to this should put it out as DVD, because bad movies have quite a popular market nowadays. But like the things like, you look at what happened with The Room and stuff like that. That could be this kind of movie. Like the dialogue, I'm not going to get into the dialogue yet, but there's a lot in this that makes it a really fun, enjoyable movie. Like, I would go to a screening of this, and I think you could make it a fun little cult, so bad it's good movie. It is that good. And bad. If that makes sense. But yeah, the only downside is I think it was filmed on, like, VHS cameras, judging from the quality of the picture. But again, that could, like I said, it could just be a VHS rip that's up on YouTube. But it's a bit of a shame, really. For my next con, I've written it as a con, but God, it was so great. The terrible acting. I will say, of the people in it, Mikey from the rock group Boyzone is actually not a bad actor. I was like, you're actually pretty good, mate. You're a pretty decent actor in, this fun kung fu movie that's for some reason getting made in Ireland. I love it. In particular, bro, I mentioned him, but Lachlan, who's the main villain in this movie, he's not much of an actor. And I think it's partly because he's meant to be like the sinister drug lord who's running the town, is evil. He's just like a nice old man. He just looks like he looks like someone's granddad. Like, one of the people who's involved in it was like, my granddad was an actor, we'll get him to play him. And he's just so lovable. I can't hate this guy. Even when he's like, let's kill that guy, and I killed your father, and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, he's so fun. Additionally, as a bad actor, I've got to give big shout out to the monk. I don't think he even has a name, the monk. So, Jimmy gets trained in martial arts by a monk. Possibly as a Shaolin monk thing, but as a big Franciscan monk guy with a beard and like a burlap robe. And like the robe with a rope. He's no up to much as that. His delivery is just kind of saying his lines and that, but it just adds to the charm. Oh God, I love this movie so much. This might actually be in my top 10 favourite movies. That's how much I enjoyed this. I went into this with high hopes and it somehow met them. Like high hopes of a good bad movie, and it met them. That says something. As another con, we've got the repetitive music, so we have kind of 3 songs in the movie. We have, we have 4, because the villain, Seagull, like Steven Seagal, get it? It's very clever. Seagull has his own theme that you hear like for a couple of bits. Most of the time you hear this, it is really like the start of the Super Mario Bros. Theme, and then it changes to a different song. But you get that for a while. You have the live, love, once again, I want to live, laugh, love and survive. I want to live, laugh, love and survive. I want to live my life, want to love and survive. That's one of the songs. And we also have the love theme, which is terrible. Like, the guy who does songs is like trying to be Rod Stewart, I think. So he's like, doing that whole like, that kind of like trying to sound like he's a bit gruff, a bit rough. And he's not good at it. But he's like, you should keep moving your mountain with my hand. It's like, no, it's bad. But that's what just makes it so good. And I'm like, you have a musician in it. Mikey was in the rock group Boyzone. How could you not ask him? He could probably do the music for it. He could probably do a better job than Live, Love, Life, and Survive. Live, life, love, and survive. I love this movie. As an Archon, there are so many montages in this movie. A lot of training montages. I think, if I had to guess, I never counted. I should have counted. I should have counted the training montages. I think there's 4, in a 1 hour, 30-minute movie. Possibly more. There probably is more. But most importantly, there are two fixing up the house montages of the same house. Because he fixes up in the house, and then he fixes up outside the house. And at separate points as well. Like stuff happens in between. Oh man. So yeah, it's very montage heavy. I think that's just as part of the whole, it was made to like show off that Jimmy is good at the whole kung fu or karate or whatever martial art he does. I don't know what martial art he does. He is good at it. Well, I'm not an expert or anything, but he appears to be good at the martial arts, what he does. So I think they are basically to show off what he can do. And he is pretty good actually, to give him his due. I mentioned that earlier, but yeah. There are quite a lot of montages, though, which means you get a lot of the Live, Love, Life, and Survive song, and the instrumental Live, Love, Life, and Survive song, which sounds like something that would be in like an early 90s game like Theme Hospital. It could fit in Theme Hospital footage, and you wouldn't notice, probably. As Urcon, this movie is very much a shoot what we can movie. I mean that it's kind of a con, but it's also something I like, so there was like a fairground in town, so there's a fairground scene in the movie that just kind of happens for no real reason. Just kind of go to the fair, drive about in the Dodge Jumps, because it's there, so you can film it and it's free. There's a bit of him riding a horse because I think he wanted to show he could ride a horse. There's me and 3 of my mates can ride dirt bikes, so I'll have a dirt bike scene in the movie. It feels a bit like that, but I kind of like that. Because that makes it charming, I think I've discovered from the bad movies so far, I like bad movies that aren't cynical. This doesn't feel cynical. This feels like basically Jimmy found out about people interested in him being in a movie, and all his mates were like, heck yeah, we'll help Jimmy get a movie. We'll make the movie to show them that he can be in movies. I love him. There's an Archon, there's like lots of little things that I don't want to say because I want you to appreciate them. This is the first bad movie I want you to watch. There's like so many little things in this that are so like silly. A lot of prop things, for example, are just kind of wrong. I don't want to get into it. It's worth watching just for... I've not even mentioned some of the more bizarre things that happen in this and like the nonsensical elements and that. And it's my last con, but also probably the con that's most a pro is the dialogue in this movie. I have probably laughed less at actual comedies for their dialogue than the dialogue in this movie. It is hilariously bad. It's kind of great. It's so fun. There's like... I'll try to think of a couple of examples I really like. There's OSW mentioned this line quite prominently, and it is one that's worth mentioning, is Mikey says to one of his... is it his henchman or is it his girlfriend that's also Jimmy's girlfriend? Where he goes, you're making me look bad, and that's not good. And that's possibly the best line in any movie. It's so great. Oh, what's the other one I really like? I love every line by like the main villain, Lachlan, who's like this nice old man drug lord. And there's one in particular where he goes like, having the son of the man I killed work for me, wouldn't that be something? Or wouldn't that be sweet? It's great. All the dialogue's kind of not that great. It's not the point of what the movie was made for, but it's terrible and I love it. For my overall rating, I genuinely struggled for this. The scores don't really matter at the end of the movie, they're just kind of like a number I picked that I think most reflects how I feel about the movie. The problem is Fatal Deviation is simultaneously everything between 1 and 10. As a so bad it's good movie, it is a 10. It might be the perfect so bad it's good movie. It's brilliant. I love it. And the fact that you see at the end, it's just like a bunch of folk having a laugh. I'm like, hey! It feels like you're part of the, you're part of having the laugh. It's like, hey! But at the same time, it is also terrible. It's a terrible dialogue, terrible acting, terrible everything. But that's what makes it so good. So, I eventually settled on a 4 out of 10. It can be any number you want. Do I think you should watch Fatal Deviation? Absolutely. You need to watch Fatal Deviation. I'm even going to link in a comment on this video to Fatal Deviation on YouTube so you can watch it because it's so goddamn good. It deserves to be seen. It needs to be witnessed. Oh man, it's brilliant. So I know what you're thinking. What are you watching tomorrow, Matt? On Sunday the 24th, which is today when this video goes out. Damn it. I've exposed the business. Oh no. Well, I'm planning on watching Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele. I'm looking forward to watching that because it's meant to be really good, and I hope I like it. If I like it a lot, I'll probably go and see Us. I feel like I'm going to like it, so I hope I do. What would my movie of the week be? Because I always have to have my movie of the week. It's got to be Downfall. If I accidentally picked another blockbuster movie and hadn't watched Downfall, Fatal Deviation would have been number 2. Fatal Deviation in some weeks probably would be movie of the week. It is great, but it was definitely Downfall. That is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Fatal Deviation's great. It might have the spot of my favourite band movie now. I never thought anything would knock off Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus, but it might have done it. What a movie. Wow. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I certainly did. If you enjoyed it, you should subscribe to my channel. That's cool. And you should watch Fatal Deviation, because it's great. And you should like the video, I guess. That's a thing people do. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions for me to watch or stuff like that. I don't know. And I don't think there's anything else I want to say, so I'll see you in wherever I upload next. Bye. John Clooney.